You guys ever heard of night soil?
Oh, yeah, night soil. Human poop is
Ooh.
fertilizer.
Okay.
Yes.
History is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Hello, I am an American and have lived in Europe for 30 years now and teach at a community college here in the Netherlands. I really enjoy both stuff they don't want you to know and stuff you should know. A few months ago, I gave my English as a second language students the exercise of choosing one of your episodes, listening to it, and giving a short oral report on the episode in English, of course. I would love to hear that.
Oh, shucks. Thanks.
A. Connor goes on. I also teach social studies and international studies. So for those courses, every year our students visit the International Court of Justice in The Hague, where we talk about how it works and sometimes get to watch some of the war crimes trials. Most people do not know that the U.S. does not participate in the court. They do help find and transport criminals, and historically they did help create the court. However, they do not participate in it. It would be great if you did a show on the International Court of Justice, especially given the recent debate on U.S. democracy. Love to hear you guys. Keep up the good work. Kind regards, A. Connor. Why would the U.S. not want to support an international court that tries war criminals?
It's even crazier than that. Okay, so a lot of Americans don't know this, but there are some people who are lauded as heroes by certain factions of the U.S. Population that can't travel to places because they might get arrested. And yeah, your point holds, Noel, about the idea of possibly being war criminals. I would like to introduce everyone who hasn't heard about this. First, I'm excited. I'm jumping around. But first off, A. Connor, thank you. Yes, done. We're doing that episode. It's weird that we haven't done it yet.
So much. It's so rife. It's fascinating.
Because here's how deep it goes. And A. Connor, I'm sure you know this, but for anybody who's not aware, there's this stance against participating in ICC is so ingrained in American culture that back in 2002, under the Bush administration, they passed the American Service Members Protection Act, and that has a street name. The street name is the Hague Invasion Act, meaning that if you take someone that we care about, because the U.S. doesn't treat everybody equally, obviously, if you take someone that we care about and you try them in the court, then we are sending the world's biggest, most dangerous military to the court, and not to peacefully testify, not to be character witnesses.
So there's a really, really cool piece. I don't know. It's just a good primer on this that came out in April 16th of this year on NPR. It was filed by Michael Martin on All Things Considered, and he interviews John Bellinger III, who is a former legal advisor for the National Security Council, specifically about this kind of fraught relationship between the U.S. and the International Criminal Court. And the host starts the interview very, straightforwardly asking this gentleman, why? Why is it that so he sort of gives a little background. He says the International Criminal Court was established relatively recently in 1998 by an international agreement that's called the Rome Statute. And the U.S., to A. Connor's point in the email, did help negotiate that accord. In the end, it didn't formally join. And he asks Bellinger, why not? And he responds, the real answer to your question is that the U.S. has been concerned from the very beginning that the prosecutor for the court would be given too much power unchecked, and he or she could conduct politically motivated prosecutions of U.S. soldiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
AKA bring them up on, war crime charges, right?
Right. Yeah. There's more to the story, too.
Certainly, but I'm just saying, it's like we don't do war crimes in the United States. I think that's sort of the... what I'm saying is, I am the U.S. We don't do war crimes. That's what other countries do, war crimes. We don't do that. So therefore, we are not going to put our rubber stamp on a situation out of our control that could call our men and women in uniform before some sort of European tribunal and rake them across the coals for just doing Uncle Sam's good work.
That's the idea. I mean, that's why there's standing law in the U.S. I'll dig into this and have the specifics for the episode, but that's why there's standing law in the U.S. that says, you know, you can't prosecute certain people or positions for exercising the actions that are expected in their role, unless they're, you know, there are things that are outlined, right? But that's why the U.S. doesn't accuse a sitting president of war crimes, right? When there's a conflict in a region somewhere else in the world. But this idea, it's important to note, has never been tested. The U.S. has not invaded the Hague for 2 decades and counting. So picture the UN or the International Criminal Court with one of those little erase boards in the break room that says it's been, and then somebody in marker wrote 20 years since the U.S. invaded the Hague. There's some CYA there, obviously, and a lot of U.S. allies didn't like this move. And the U.S. started instituting the strategy of obtaining immunity from other state actors in order to, like in a quid pro quo. So it's a fascinating process, but it's not something every country can do. And the U.S. would say, of course, as the lawyer pointed out, they're not signatories to the ICC.
Well, you know who else is not? There's another country that's in the news right now that's doing some things that doesn't recognize.
Russia.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's honestly where this article kind of stemmed from, or this NPR piece was. You know, the U.S. Or the president of the United States, Joe Biden, went so far as to call Vladimir Putin a war criminal. And where do war criminals get prosecuted? It's at the Hague, at least in terms of international affairs or the international, you know, community. And yet we would not hold our own officials or soldiers to that same standard. So at that point, you know, I mean, I know it's complicated, and I know it's definitely, we're going to keep this short because we don't want to spoil anything that's going to go into the episode, and definitely requires a deeper dive. But it feels very hollow for Biden to say that as sort of a buzzy thing to say, I'm taking a stand, and yet we don't actually recognize the jurisdiction of this, you know, largely internationally legally recognized body. So it's kind of like not really putting your money where your mouth is when you say a thing like that.
Yeah. Also, let me just read the list of countries who are not part of the International Criminal Court. This isn't a full list, but Russia is not. Neither is the U.S. We've established that. Neither is China, nor India, nor Iraq, Libya, Yemen, Qatar, Israel, Ukraine. Like, it's not everybody is what we're saying. And then I do want to say, I know we do want to keep this short, but I want to say there could be rational/legitimate concerns from the perspective of those countries. The ICC gets a lot of criticism. It's been accused of being a tool of Western imperialist or neo-colonial powers, punishing like the leaders of smaller, less powerful states in Africa in particular, while ignoring crimes committed by other more powerful countries. It's like even the African Union wants to withdraw from, or made moves to withdraw from the court. It's hard to find a court that every country agrees with, and there are a lot of accusations about conspiracy. So, Connor, as the Templar Knight said to Indy, you have chosen wisely. This is perfect for an episode.